I've always believed that trust is the scaffolding of a marriage, the invisible framework that holds everything together when the storms come. For 20 years, Claire and I had built a life on that foundation. We met in college, two kids from small towns with big dreams, her with her infectious laugh and me with my stubborn determination to make something of myself. We were a team, or so I thought. Raising two kids, navigating careers, and carving out a comfortable life in a leafy suburb outside Portland. Our house, a craftsman with a wraparound porch, was filled with the noise of our lives. Soccer practices, piano lessons, and late-night conversations over glasses of Pinot. Claire was my anchor, my confidant, the woman who could still make my heart skip with a glance. But anchors can slip, and trust, I learned, can erode like sand under a relentless tide. It was a Tuesday in early May, the kind of day where the air smells of blooming lilacs and the world feels full of promise. I was in my home office, a converted attic space where I ran my consulting business, when I noticed something off. My laptop, usually a fortress of organized chaos, had a browser window open to Claire's email. She must have used it that morning and forgotten to log out. I wasn't the snooping type, never had been. But the subject line of an unread email caught my eye. Last night. It was from someone named Ethan, a name I didn't recognize. My stomach twisted, not out of suspicion but curiosity. The kind that nudges you toward a door you're not sure you want to open. I clicked. The email was short, almost painfully casual. Claire, last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. Same time tomorrow. My heart thudded, a dull, heavy rhythm that drowned out the hum of the world. I scrolled through her inbox, my fingers moving faster than my brain could process. There were dozens of emails from this Ethan going back months. Some were mundane, logistics about meeting times, quick notes about shared projects, but others were intimate, laced with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. You looked radiant in that blue dress, one read. Another, I can still feel your hand in mine. I sat there, frozen, as the life I thought I knew began to fracture. Ethan, I learned from a quick search through Claire's contacts, was Ethan Caldwell, a colleague at the marketing firm where she worked. He was a senior account manager, 10 years younger than me, with a LinkedIn profile that screamed self-assured charm. Sharp suits, a dazzling smile, and a bio touting his passion for storytelling. I didn't know him, but I could picture him. Sleek, confident, the kind of man who always knew what to say. Claire had mentioned him in passing, always with a dismissive tone. Oh, Ethan's just the new guy. Good at his job, but a bit full of himself. I'd laughed then, never imagining he was anything more than a workplace anecdote. The emails weren't explicit, but they didn't need to be. They painted a picture of stolen moments, of a connection that went beyond late-night work sessions. I dug deeper, my hands trembling as I accessed her calendar. There they were, recurring client dinners and team meetings scheduled at odd hours, often at restaurants or hotels I'd never heard her mention. I cross-referenced dates with my own memory. Nights she'd come home late, her hair slightly mussed, her smile a little too bright. I chalked it up to stress, to her ambition driving her to climb the corporate ladder. Now each memory felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I didn't confront her that day. Couldn't. My mind was a storm of questions, each one sharper than the last. Was this real? Was she in love with him? How long had this been going on? I spent the rest of the afternoon in a daze, replaying our marriage like a film reel, searching for clues I'd missed. The way she'd started wearing perfume again, a scent I didn't recognize. The new dresses in her closet, bolder than her usual style. The way she'd pull away from my touch, just slightly, when I reached for her in bed. I'd attributed it all to the ebb and flow of a long marriage, the natural drift of two people navigating busy lives. Now I saw it for what it was, a betrayal so subtle it had slipped under my radar. That night, Claire came home late as she often did. She kicked off her heels at the door, her auburn hair catching the light as she called out, "Hey Han, sorry I'm late. Crazy day." Her voice was warm, familiar, but it grated against my raw nerves. I watched her move through the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water, chatting about a campaign launch as if nothing had changed. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I held back. I needed proof, something undeniable, before I tore our world apart. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own life. I hated it, the paranoia, the obsession, but I couldn't stop. I checked her phone when she was in the shower, finding texts from Ethan that mirrored the emails. Affectionate, suggestive, but never overt. "Missed you at the meeting today," one said, followed by a winking emoji. Another, "Counting down to Thursday." I tracked her location through an app we'd installed for the kids, noticing patterns: lunchtime trips to a coffee shop downtown, evening detours to a hotel bar. I even drove by her office one day, parking across the street like some cliché private eye, watching as she and Ethan emerged together, laughing, his hand brushing her elbow as they walked to his car. Each discovery was a blow, but I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to understand the full scope of her deception, to know how deep this went. I started digging into Ethan's life, too. Social media gave me fragments. Photos of him at industry events, always with a drink in hand and a woman on his arm. Posts on X painted him as a charmer, someone who thrived on attention. I found an old blog he'd written, musings about living in the moment and chasing what sets your soul on fire. It made me sick, but it also gave me insight into the kind of man Claire was drawn to, a man who wasn't me. Our marriage wasn't perfect. I knew that. I worked long hours, and sometimes I was too focused on my business to notice the small things. Claire had always been the vibrant one, the one who filled our home with energy. I'd assumed she was happy, that our life together was enough. But as I pieced together her secret life, I saw the cracks I'd ignored. She'd complained about feeling invisible, about being just a mom or just a wife. I'd listened, or thought I had, but I hadn't really heard her. Had that driven her to Ethan? Was this my fault as much as hers? The kids, Emma and Lucas, were my anchor during those weeks. Emma, 16, was all sharp wit and teenage rebellion, while Lucas, 12, was quieter, always buried in a book. I looked at them and saw Claire, her eyes in Emma's defiant stare, her smile in Lucas's shy grin. I couldn't imagine telling them, couldn't fathom shattering their world. But the anger was building, a slow burn that threatened to consume me. I didn't just want answers. I wanted justice. I wanted Claire to feel the weight of what she'd done. I decided to follow her. It was reckless, but I needed to see it with my own eyes. On a Thursday night, when she texted me about another client dinner, I told her I'd be working late and drove to the hotel she'd mentioned in her calendar. The place was upscale, all glass and chrome, with a bar that spilled out onto a rooftop terrace. I parked in a shadowed corner of the lot, my heart pounding as I watched her car pull in. She stepped out, wearing a black dress that hugged her curves, her hair loose and catching the evening light. She looked beautiful, and it gutted me. Ethan was waiting at the entrance. He was taller than I'd expected, his movements easy and confident as he greeted her with a kiss on the cheek. They disappeared inside, and I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing. I could storm in, make a scene, but what would that prove? Instead, I waited, hours ticking by until they emerged again, her arm looped through his. They didn't see me as they walked to his car, her laughter cutting through the night like a blade. They drove off, and I followed, keeping my distance, until they pulled into a quiet street near his apartment. I didn't go further. I didn't need to. The image of them together, her ease with him, was enough. I drove home, the road blurring through tears I hadn't realized I was shedding. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the anger had solidified into something else. Resolve. Claire had betrayed me, betrayed our family, and I couldn't let it go unanswered. But I didn't want a screaming match or a tearful confession. I wanted her to understand the cost of her choices, to feel the kind of pain she'd inflicted on me. That night, as she slipped into bed beside me, murmuring a sleepy good night, I lay awake, planning. Revenge wasn't a word I'd ever associated with myself. I was the steady one, the problem solver, the man who fixed things. But now I wanted to break something. Not her, not physically, but the world she'd built with Ethan, the lie she thought she could keep. I didn't know how yet, but I knew it would be deliberate, precise, and devastating. Claire had no idea what was coming, and that was the only thing that kept me sane as I stared into the darkness, her breathing soft and oblivious beside me. The days after I followed Claire to Ethan's apartment were a blur of rage and calculation. I moved through our life like a ghost, nodding at her small talk, kissing her goodnight, all while a storm churned inside me. Every smile she gave me, every casual touch, felt like a mockery. She thought she could live two lives, one with me, the dutiful husband and father, and another with Ethan, her secret thrill. But I wasn't going to let her have both. I wanted her to lose something, to feel the ground shift beneath her the way it had for me. I didn't want a confrontation, not yet. I wanted something sharper, something that would cut deeper than words. Revenge, I decided, wasn't about destruction. It was about exposure, about stripping away the facade she'd so carefully constructed. I started by gathering more evidence, not because I needed it for myself. I'd seen enough, but because I wanted an airtight case, something she couldn't deny or deflect. I installed a tracking app on her phone, hidden in a system update she'd never notice. It fed me her movements in real time. Coffee shops, hotels, Ethan's apartment. I cross-referenced her calendar with receipts I found in her purse, piecing together a timeline of her betrayal. There were dinners at upscale restaurants, weekend work trips to Seattle. Even a spa day she'd claimed was with her sister but was, according to a geotagged photo on Ethan's social media, spent with him at a vineyard. Each discovery was a fresh wound, but I channeled the pain into focus. I wasn't just building a case, I was building a trap. Ethan was my next target. I needed to know who he was, not just as Claire's lover but as a man. I dug deeper than his polished LinkedIn profile, scouring public records, social media, and posts on X. He was 35, single, with a reputation as a rising star in the marketing world. His Instagram was a curated gallery of craft cocktails, gym selfies, and cryptic quotes about living authentically. But X revealed a less polished side. Colleagues hinting at his arrogance, a former girlfriend posting about his wandering eye. One post, from an anonymous account, called him a charming snake who burns bridges as fast as he builds them. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Ethan wasn't untouchable. He had weaknesses, and I intended to exploit them. My plan began to take shape, but it wasn't enough to expose their affair to Claire's friends or family. That was too predictable, too fleeting. I wanted something that would unravel their world, something that would make them both face consequences without me ever raising my voice. The idea came to me late one night, as I sat in my office staring at a photo of Claire and Ethan I'd pulled from a company event page. They were standing close, her hand on his arm, both smiling for the camera. The caption mentioned a major client pitch they'd won together, a multimillion-dollar account for a tech startup called Nexlify. That was my opening. Nexlify was Claire's biggest professional achievement, the kind of account that could fast-track her to a corner office. Ethan, as her partner on the project, shared the glory. But what if that glory was tainted? What if their professional triumph was exposed as a sham, built on lies and unethical behavior? I wasn't thinking divorce or public humiliation. I was thinking sabotage, a slow poison that would seep into their lives and leave them scrambling. I wanted Claire to lose the career she valued so much, and Ethan to lose the reputation he'd built. But I had to be careful, nothing could trace back to me. I started with the company. Nexlify was a young, image-conscious startup, obsessed with transparency and ethics. Their website was full of buzzwords like integrity and authenticity. If I could plant evidence that Claire and Ethan had crossed professional lines, that their relationship had influenced the pitch process, it could unravel their victory. I didn't need to prove they'd done anything illegal, just enough to raise doubts, to make Nexlify question their judgment. I began by creating an anonymous email account, using a VPN to mask my location. I sent a carefully worded message to Nexlify's HR department, posing as a concerned colleague. I've heard rumors about inappropriate behavior between two senior members of the marketing team who worked on your account. I wrote, it's possible their personal relationship influenced decisions. I'd hate to see your company's reputation tied to this. It was vague, but it was a seed. I followed it with a second email, this time to the marketing firm's compliance officer, hinting at unprofessional conduct during the Nexlify pitch. I included a screenshot of one of Claire's emails to Ethan. Not the most damning one, but enough to suggest familiarity beyond colleagues. I knew it wouldn't be enough on its own, so I kept digging. I found a disgruntled former employee of the firm on X, someone who'd posted about toxic favoritism in the office. I reached out anonymously, coaxing details about Ethan's history of bending rules, late expense reports, questionable client gifts. It wasn't much, but it added weight to my narrative. The real breakthrough came when I accessed Claire's work laptop. She'd left it open one evening, and I took the chance to copy files from her Nexlify project folder. Most were standard presentations, budgets, but one document caught my eye. A draft proposal with notes in the margins, some in Ethan's handwriting. They were flirty, personal, written during what was supposed to be a professional collaboration. "You're killing it, gorgeous," one note read. Another, "Let's celebrate this win at the coast." It was reckless of them to leave a paper trail, but it was exactly what I needed. I scanned the pages and sent them anonymously to Nexlify's CEO, with a note. "Is this the kind of professionalism you expect from your partners?" I didn't stop there. I knew Claire and Ethan's affair wasn't just about stolen moments. It was about power, about the thrill of getting away with something. So I turned their own game against them. I created a fake social media profile, a woman named Lila, a supposed industry insider, and started posting subtle jabs on X. Heard some juicy gossip about a certain marketing duo landing a big account through less than ethical means. One post read. I tagged Nexlify and the marketing firm, knowing the posts would circulate in their circles. I didn't expect them to go viral, but they didn't need to. They just needed to stir enough chatter to make people curious. At home, I kept up the act. Claire noticed I was quieter, but I brushed it off as work stress. "You sure you're okay, Mark?" she'd ask, her eyes searching mine. I'd nod, forcing a smile, while inside I was screaming. I hated her for what she'd done, but I hated myself more for still loving her. Every time she laughed with the kids or tucked Lucas into bed, I saw the woman I'd married, not the stranger who'd betrayed me. It made my plan harder, but it also fueled me. She didn't get to have it all, not after this. Weeks passed, and the seeds I'd planted began to sprout. Claire came home one evening looking rattled, her usual composure frayed. "Rough day?" I asked, stirring pasta on the stove. She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Just some drama at work. Someone's stirring up trouble about the Nexlify account." I kept my face neutral, my heart pounding. "What kind of trouble?" I asked, casual as ever. She hesitated, then waved it off. "Just rumors. It'll blow over." But it didn't. The next week, she mentioned a meeting with HR, her voice tight. "They're asking questions about my work with Ethan. It's ridiculous." I nodded, feigning concern, while inside I felt a grim satisfaction. Ethan was feeling the heat too. I'd kept tabs on his social media, noticing fewer posts, a tighter privacy setting. A contact at the firm, a friend I'd roped into casual spying, mentioned Ethan was on edge, snapping at colleagues. Nexlify had started asking for additional documentation, delaying payments on the contract. The marketing firm was conducting an internal review, and whispers about Claire and Ethan's close working relationship were spreading. My plan was working, but it wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel the full weight of their choices, to lose something they couldn't replace. I escalated. Using another anonymous account, I sent a tip to a local business journal known for covering corporate scandals. I included the scanned proposal notes and a timeline of Claire and Ethan's meetings, carefully curated from her calendar and the tracking app. I framed it as a whistleblower expose, suggesting the Nexlify account was won through favoritism and personal ties. I didn't expect a front-page story, but I knew the journal's readers, industry insiders, clients would take notice. Sure enough, a week later, a short article appeared online. Questions raised over ethics in major marketing contract. It didn't name Claire or Ethan directly, but the details were specific enough to point fingers. Claire was a wreck. She tried to hide it, but I saw the strain. Late nights on her laptop, hushed phone calls she thought I couldn't hear. One night, I overheard her arguing with Ethan, her voice low and furious. "This is getting out of hand. We need to figure out who's doing this." I stood outside the bedroom door, my blood cold, knowing I was the ghost haunting their lives. I wasn't done yet. The final piece of my plan was still to come, and it would be the cruelest cut of all. A betrayal of their betrayal, one they'd never see coming. The air in our house had changed, thick with the tension of unspoken truths. Claire moved through our routines like a shadow of herself, her laughter forced, her eyes darting to her phone every few minutes. She thought she was hiding it, but I saw everything. The way her fingers trembled when she poured coffee, the way she'd pause mid-sentence, lost in some private panic. My plan was working, and the cracks in her world were widening. The marketing firm's internal review had escalated. Nexlify was threatening to pull their contract, and the whispers about her and Ethan were no longer just whispers. The Business Journal article had sparked a firestorm in their industry, with ex-posts amplifying the scandal, some even naming Claire and Ethan outright. I watched it unfold from the sidelines, a silent architect of their downfall, but I wasn't satisfied. Not yet. The final piece of my revenge was about to fall into place, and it would be a masterpiece of precision and pain. I'd spent weeks refining the last act, a move so calculated it felt like chess against an opponent who didn't even know they were playing. Claire and Ethan's affair wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a professional one, woven into the fabric of their careers. I wanted to unravel that fabric completely, to leave them exposed and powerless in the world they'd chosen over me. But I also wanted it to hurt in a way that lingered, that forced them to confront the consequences of their choices every single day. Divorce was too simple, too clean. I wanted something that would haunt them, something that would make them question who they were. The key was Ethan's ambition. From everything I'd learned, his social media, his colleagues' gossip, the ex-posts painting him as a self-serving charmer, he lived for his reputation. It was his currency, his ticket to the next big opportunity. Claire, too, had built her career on being the best, the one who closed deals and won clients with her charisma and smarts. Their affair had been a reckless gamble, but it was their professional entanglement that gave me leverage. I'd already planted seeds of doubt with Nexlify and the marketing firm, but now I needed to ensure the fallout was permanent. I started with Ethan. Through my anonymous accounts, I'd built a network of contacts, disgruntled colleagues, former clients, even a few industry bloggers who thrived on gossip. I fed them carefully curated information, more screenshots of Claire and Ethan's flirty notes, expense reports showing questionable charges during their work trips, and a fabricated tip about Ethan using company resources to impress clients outside the Nexlify deal. None of it was outright false, but I stretched the truth just enough to make it damning. I sent a package to the marketing firm's board, posing as a whistleblower, with a detailed dossier of their unethical conduct. I included enough verifiable details, dates, locations, emails, to make it impossible to dismiss. Then I turned to Claire's personal world. She'd always been the social hub of our circle, the one who hosted barbecues and organized book clubs. Her friends adored her, and I knew that losing their respect would cut deeper than any professional setback. I didn't want to expose her affair directly. That was too crude. Instead, I used her own words against her. I'd found a journal on her laptop, a digital diary she kept sporadically over the past year. It was locked, but I'd cracked the password, our anniversary, a bitter irony. The entries were raw, unguarded, detailing her feelings for Ethan, her guilt about our marriage, her thrill at the secrecy. "I feel alive with him," she wrote. "Mark is steady, but Ethan sees me." Reading those words was like swallowing glass, but they were gold for my plan. I edited the entries to remove any mention of Ethan's name, making them vague enough to seem like reflections on her life. Then I printed them and mailed them anonymously to her closest friends. Sarah, who'd been her maid of honor. Lisa, who'd cried with her when Lucas was born. The package included a note. "I found this and thought you should know who Claire really is." I knew they'd talk, that the words would spread like wildfire through our social circle. Claire's image as the perfect wife and mother would crumble, replaced by whispers of discontent and deception. The final touch was the most audacious. I'd learned that Ethan was angling for a promotion to vice president at the firm, a role that would cement his status. Claire, too, was in line for a raise, her work on Nexlify supposedly her golden ticket. I decided to pit them against each other, to let their own ambition tear them apart. Using my Lila persona, I sent Ethan an anonymous email, hinting that Claire was throwing him under the bus to save her own skin. She's telling HR the Nexlify pitch was her idea and you were just along for the ride. I wrote, "Watch your back." To Claire, I sent a similar message, claiming Ethan was blaming her for the ethical lapses to secure his promotion. "He's saying you pushed the boundaries to impress Nexlify," I wrote. "Don't let him take you down with him." I knew their trust in each other was fragile, built on stolen moments rather than true loyalty. The emails were a spark, and their egos were the kindling. I waited, watching as the fallout unfolded. Claire came home one evening, her face pale, her voice sharp as she snapped at Emma over a spilled glass of juice. "Everything okay?" I asked, playing the concerned husband. She shook her head, muttering about backstabbing at work. I didn't press, but I knew my plan was working. Ethan's social media went silent, his usual bravado replaced by cryptic posts about trust being a luxury. The marketing firm announced a restructuring, and rumors swirled that both Claire and Ethan were under scrutiny. The climax came at a company gala, an event I dreaded but insisted on attending as Claire's +1. She'd hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but I played it off as wanting to support her. The gala was at a downtown hotel, all chandeliers and champagne flutes, the kind of place where egos sparkled as brightly as the decor. Claire wore an emerald green dress, her beauty a painful reminder of what I'd lost, but I kept my composure. Ethan was there, looking strained, his charm dialed down to a flicker. I watched them from across the room, noting the way they avoided each other's gaze, the tension crackling between them. Midway through the evening, the firm's CEO took the stage to announce the new vice president. I held my breath, knowing this was the moment I'd been building toward. The CEO's speech was brief, his tone clipped. "After careful consideration," he said, "we've decided to postpone the appointment until our internal review is complete." A murmur rippled through the crowd, and I saw Claire's face tighten, her knuckles white around her glass. Ethan's jaw clenched, his eyes darting to her. I knew what they were thinking. One of them had betrayed the other. After the announcement, I slipped away to the bar, where I overheard snippets of conversation. Colleagues whispering about the Nexlify scandal, about Claire and Ethan's inappropriate relationship. My dossier had reached the right hands, and the firm was distancing itself from both of them. Nexlify had already pulled half their funding, citing concerns about integrity. Claire's career, her pride, was crumbling, and Ethan's golden boy status was tarnished beyond repair. That night, as we drove home, Claire was silent, her hands twisted in her lap. I waited until we were in bed, the house dark and quiet, before I made my final move. "Claire," I said, my voice calm but deliberate, "I know about Ethan." Her breath caught, her body going still beside me. I didn't look at her, didn't need to see the panic in her eyes. "I've known for months," I continued. "I've seen the emails, the texts, the hotel receipts. I know everything." She started to speak, her voice trembling, but I cut her off. "I didn't confront you because I wanted you to feel what it's like to lose something you love. Your career, your reputation, your friends, they're gone. And Ethan? He's not your savior. He's just a man who used you, like you used me." She sobbed then, a raw, broken sound that might have softened me once. But I was done. I told her I wasn't leaving, not yet, because of the kids. "But you'll live with this," I said. "Every day, you'll know what you've lost, and you'll know I made it happen." I rolled over, my back to her, and let her cry alone in the dark. The next morning, Claire moved to the guest room. Her friends stopped calling, the invitations dried up, and her colleagues kept their distance. Ethan was demoted, then quietly let go, his name a cautionary tale in the industry. I didn't gloat, didn't need to. I dismantled their world, piece by piece, without ever raising my voice. The kids sensed the shift, but I shielded them, keeping our home steady while Claire unraveled. My revenge wasn't loud or violent. It was cold, calculated, and complete. And as I watched Claire shrink under the weight of her choices, I felt no joy, only the quiet satisfaction of justice served.